Привет всем! С вами я, Janie, и это College Russian. In today's video, we are continuing our topic of introduction to the dative case. And remember, when I'm teaching a difficult grammar concept in Russian, I like to teach it with the following method called PCP, not the drug. It's short for perceive, comprehend, produce. This creates a good foundation with the perceiving, then we build it, and then we reinforce it with producing it. So that's my method we're going to be talking about in today's video. So today is the day when we comprehend slash, I think the other good version of, the other good word for this C component of my method is also concentrate. This is the part when learning grammar where you buckle down and you learn it. Is it going to be super fun and exciting and like really funny and lively? No, this is the boring part of grammar where you just have to drill, 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 drill so that you can get on to the fun part, which is produce and interact with people and use that grammar in context. So today is the comprehend, it's the boring part, it's the concentrate, it's the drill yourself part. And in fact, at the end of today's video, there will be a проверочная работа, a quiz for you to practice to see how well you comprehended before we go on to the producing section. Also, I highly recommend heading over to collegerussian.com and getting the accompanying worksheets. These are awesome. As you can see, they have all sorts of beautiful charts in there and exercises. I highly recommend it. I'm a big believer in writing things down when I'm learning. I don't believe in passive learning. I feel like you need to be engaged doing something while you're learning. So these are a great accompaniment to this video series. And then, as I said, here's a quick preview of the quiz we will have at the end of the video today. You can leave your comments down below and then find out how much you comprehended today's lesson. So since today's going to be a little bit tedious, we're going to have a fun cultural moment, a little bit, I call this a cultural tidbit. So my students last year when the war started in Ukraine, they came to me and they were like, why is it нет войны and not нет войны? So this is an example where the cases in Russian, if you don't use them correctly, you can say two totally different things. So if you went out on the street with a sign saying нет войны, this one you're saying there is no war. There is no war. Versus if you said нет войне, you're saying no to war. No to war. So when people were going out on the streets protesting, their signs looked like this. Нет войне. Stop войне. Put a stop to the war. And as we remember, dative case is the to something, for something case. Okay, so interesting fact, it now is illegal to have signs like this in Russia. One, you can't call it a war. And two, you definitely cannot go out and protest it. So one lady in the city of Tyumen in Russia, she decided to write with chalk this phrase on the sidewalk. So she didn't even write война. She just put little asterisks to kind of imply it. Well, guess what? She, even just for this, she got arrested. And she tried to defend herself by saying, oh, it wasn't нет войне. It was нет вобле. Wobla is a type of fish, right? So it's this type of fish. They dry it and then they eat it with beer, and it's a very popular fish. So when she said that, of course, it turned into a big joke all over the internet. Everybody was laughing about it. So нет вобле, and then look at this. They've redone the names of books and movies that have the word war in it because you're not allowed to say the word war. So instead of война и мир, War and Peace by Lev Tolstoy, they made this funny joke, Wobla и мир, right? So there's the fish. Wobla, instead of звездные войны, it's now звездные вобли, like starfish instead of Star Wars. Anyway, so it was a big funny thing that was all over the internet in fall of 2022. So a fun little cultural tidbit for you there. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of dative case. So as we learned from the last video, and then also I elaborated more on this in the worksheets that I had made, these are all of our various cases that we've noticed so far or all of our various uses that we've noticed so far for dative case, such as in a lot of these Soviet propaganda posters, Slava Советской науке, Slava первому космонавту, and stuff like that. So glory to. The other one, big one, and you'll learn this really early on in your Russian when you're starting to talk about yourself, age. Again, in Spanish, for example, you have your years. In English, you are those years. And in Russian, the years happen to you, which I think is much more accurate because I didn't agree to all of these years. They just kept happening to me. The next one is when you need something, it is necessary for you. It is necessary to you. When you do something for someone or to someone, this is known as the indirect object. I made a present for you. I didn't buy you and now you're my slave. No, I bought a present for you. Also, when you're saying the word or the construction to like something, you're literally saying it's pleasing to you. The prepositions po and k. Po is a hard one to translate. It can mean by, it can mean around, on the topic of. And then k is when you're going to visit somebody. Мы едем к бабушке, например. Big one is allowed, not allowed. Можно, нельзя. Можно, нельзя. And then passive constructions, for example, instead of you're saying, I am cold, you're saying, to me, it is cold. Мне холодно. Мне жарко. You don't say, I am bored. You say, мне скучно. Мне скучно. It is boring for me. And then as you get better and better in Russian, you'll just start to learn that just certain verbs just need dative case and you memorize it, as you've seen me talk about in my other videos as well. So, помогать кому? Who are you helping? Мы помогаем папе, мы помогаем маме, например. Звонить по телефону родителям, for example. So today, we're going to mainly be drilling the endings, but after I introduce you to the endings, I will bring those words to life by putting them in one of these contexts. So keep this in mind for our example sentences that we'll be using. Okay, so if you are not already aware of gender in the Russian language, it's the absolute foundation of everything. You've got to backtrack. You've got to backtrack right now and go learn gender. Not understanding gender in Russian is the equivalent of not knowing addition and subtraction if you're going into math. You've got to know gender. Okay, so I will link to a video that will help you to learn the basics of the gender of nouns and the gender of adjectives, because that is your absolute foundation. You will be so lost in this lesson today if you don't have those basics in your Russian abilities. So first we're going to start off talking about masculine and neuter nouns, and that's because they get similar endings. So here we have some masculines: студент, брат, человек, космонавт. And they all end in a hard consonant, okay? So what we do here, this is our treatment that we give them. We're just going to add u to the end, okay? So just put a u on the end of all of these words, and bam, you have your word in dative case. So what does that look like? Студенту, брату, человеку, космонавту. And you can see that over here in this poster. Первому советскому человеку, первому космонавту. Okay. Also, a reminder, if you don't know the difference between nouns and adjectives, for those of us English speakers who were educated in the American public education system, we may not know that kind of thing. They don't teach you that kind of thing, or they do, but we don't really remember it. A noun is a person, place, or thing. Adjective is something that describes a person, place, or thing. And the reason I say that is because they get different treatments in Russian. They get very different treatments. So it's really important to know. Neuter nouns, we're going to replace the final o with u. Okay, so окно, window, слово, a word, место, place, лицо, face. And we replace the o and we get окну, слову, месту, лицу. Так. Okay, so that's how we do that's what we do with our masculine and neuter nouns. Now, when something has a soft ending, and we know something is soft because it has a мягкий знак, и краткое, or a ye. And by the way, I will link to a video where I really explain this concept of the hardness and softness of consonants. Watch for the link for it up in the top corner. If it ends in a и краткое, мягкий знак, or ye, we replace it with you. So zdanie is a neuter, but we're putting it all in here because it's going to get the same ending. So we're going to replace this with a u, this with a u, this with a u. Okay, so what does that look like on the other side after we give it the treatment? Start thinking to yourself, how are these going to look? And then I'll show you the answers. Учителю, музею, зданию. That's how those should look in dative case, okay? Now let's talk about adjectives, masculine and neuter adjectives, okay? So again, if you don't know about adjectives, you've got to learn this. This is super basic. And the key with adjectives is recognizing that all adjectives have a 2-letter ending that gets replaced depending on what you're doing. So never get attached to the last 2 letters of an adjective. That is a recipe for heartbreak. They do not stick around, okay? They are not going to stay. So we're going to be removing these last 2 letters and putting in something else. So we have something like новый, русский, большой, черное, черное. And these are all going to we're going to replace those last 2 underlined letters with ому. And it's going to come out the other side. Start testing yourself right now. Pause the video if you need to see if you get this correct. So it's going to come out the other side as новому, советскому, большому, черному. Okay, so notice большому, the stress was on this syllable, and that's because in the original of the adjective, the stress is on the final syllable as well. So we keep it on the final, we keep it on the o, even in the dative ending. So большой goes to большому. Так. Then if we have these adjectives, such as синий, ранний, or a word like хорошее, хорошее. That's interesting, right? Хорошее. So if the neuter has a ye, if the neuter version has a ye, then you absolutely have to replace it with ему. Okay, so start anticipating how these are going to look in dative case. Pause the video if you need to, and then you can test yourself. Here we go. So we've got раннему, хорошему, черному. Раннему, хорошему, черному. And then up here would also be синему, синему. Okay, so moment of truth. Now we're going to put these in context because you don't just put something into a case for no apparent reason. That's not what you do in Russian grammar. So we need to now think of what are those uses for dative case and how can we apply these endings to these word phrases and put things into dative case, okay? So what you're going to do is the thing that's in yellow is the thing you need to give the dative case treatment. So I'm trying to say, what does this boy need? What does this boy need? Also, by the way, I'm not going to be covering words like this, like этот, один, весь. I'm not going to be covering that in this video. We will have some examples of it. If you want to know how those decline, that worksheet I told you about, it's got some really beautiful charts in there for you. Okay, so что надо? Pause the video if you need to. I'm about to tell you how it ends. Okay, we think back to masculine adjective, masculine noun endings. It looks like this. Что надо этому мальчику? What does this boy need? How about this one? How old is the American White House? Interesting. Сколько лет? Get ready. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Американскому белому дому. How old is the American White House? How many years have happened to the American White House? Следующий. My brother likes rap music. So rap music is pleasing to my brother. Моему старшему брату нравится рэп-музыка. Вот так. Okay? Следующий. One new student. It's difficult for one new student to hear. Трудно слышать. And again, if you don't know how to decline this, go see that beautiful chart over on collegerussian.com. So that's going to come out as одному новому студенту трудно слышать. It's difficult for one new student to hear. Так. Then let's get into some neuters. He has floated or he has swam all around this blue sea. Okay, we know the prefix or the preposition по needs dative case. So how's this one going to be? Again, if you don't know the declension of всё, go ahead and check out that worksheet, that beautiful, beautiful worksheet I made. Он плавал по всему синему морю. Он плавал по всему синему морю. He swam all around the blue sea. Следующий. He likes books on the topic of French art. Okay, start anticipating. What treatment are we going to give to the adjective? What treatment are we going to give to the noun? You ready? Spoiler. Ему нравятся книги по французскому искусству. Так, очень хорошо. Now we get into feminines. Feminines, okay? So if something ends in an a or just a ya, not the i-ya combination, that's a separate treatment, we're going to replace a or ya with ye, just like we saw over here. Nauki, nauki. Okay, so start anticipating what those endings are going to look like. We have nauki, семье, бабушки, тети. Вот так, вот так. Okay, now if it ends in an iya, this is a special combination in the Russian language. It gets a special treatment. Or a mягкий знак, then we replace the final ya or mягкий знак with i. So it comes out the other side. As you can see over here, Krasной Armii Slava, glory to the Red Army. That's a World War II poster. And it looks like this. Истории лошади. Лошади. Вот. Okay. Now, what do we do with adjectives? Again, there's those famous final two letters of the adjectives. You need to know those last two letters of adjectives because they're going to change nonstop. Новая, советская, большая. Those get replaced with ой. And we end up with новой, советской, большой. Again, notice the stress is on the final syllable because the stress was on the final syllable over here in большая. Большая goes to большой. And this is all part of the 5-letter spelling rule. If you want more information about that, it's in the worksheet. Of course it is. Okay, хорошо. Now we have things with soft stems. And you know something is a soft stem if in the neuter or in the feminine, we see something like ye or ya. That's when we know we've got a soft stem, okay? So синяя is going to get replaced with ye. And then this version, if it's after these 5 letters, again, all this information about the 5-letter spelling rule is in the worksheet. It's going to get replaced with yay, okay? So interestingly over here, this is after a sh, like it's one of the 5 letters, and it got an oi. But this one's after a sh, and it got a yay. Huh. 5-letter spelling rule all has to do with the word stress. The word stress in хороший is not on the final syllable, and that's why. That's the 5-letter spelling rule. So now let's put it all into context. Again, we got to bring these phrases to life and make them actually need dative case, not just drill it. Okay, so how would you ask, how old is your pretty friend? How old is your pretty friend? If you don't know how to decline твоя, it's on the worksheet, of course it is. Сколько лет? Spoiler alert, сколько лет твоей красивой подруге? Сколько лет твоей красивой подруге? Так, следующий. Tomorrow we're going to our aunt. We're going to visit our aunt, or we're going to our aunt's house. So anytime we see this k, we absolutely 100% need dative case. So here we go. Start thinking what's going to happen to it. Завтра мы едем к нашей тете. Завтра мы едем к нашей тете. All right, over here, remember the word like forces dative case, right? Liking something, it is pleasing to you. So we want to say, this Russian girl likes beer. So beer is pleasing to this Russian girl. So what do? We go, этой русской девушке нравится пиво. Так. Okay, I want to go all around Russia. So in this case, по means all around, all over the place. Я хочу ездить по, ready? Всей России. По всей России. Он ездил по всей России. Вот, это у меня такая мечта. У меня есть такая мечта ездить по всей России. Это было бы супер. Так. Now let's do plurals, okay? Hang in there. We're almost done. Remember, if you can do the C part of PCP, that's the building. That's the structure of your house, okay? And then the producing is the roof. The foundation is perceiving. The C is the structure of your house. And the producing is your roof. So a roof is no good if you don't have a house underneath it. So I know this part is super boring, but stick with me. You will be so grateful that you crammed and you concentrated and you comprehended all of this. Okay, хорошо. So then we have plurals. Plurals are typically with a I on the end, or if they're neuters and sometimes some irregular masculines, they can have an a on the end. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to replace those plural endings, I and a, with So like over here, Slava советским женщинам. Так. So you put them through the treatment and you get женщинам, славам. Вот так. Now, if you had an E, but the E is not because of one of the 7-letter spelling rules, then you're going to get yam. And then there's a neuter plural that got a ya. And then some irregulars will also get the ya, like друзья, братья. So anytime you have a neuter that's a ya or an E, but it's not an E because of the 7-letter spelling rule. Look over here at babushka. We have an E here simply because we have one of the 7 letters. And if you don't know what the 7-letter spelling rule is, please look it up. I may have a video I can link as well. That's the only reason we're getting an E here, is because the 7-letter spelling rule, okay? So that's where we put in a yam. That's where we get something like детям, бабушкам, зданиям. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done. You can do it. Let's do adjectives. Then we get adjectives. Here are our typical plural adjective endings. Ые, ые. And we're going to replace those very important last 2 letters of an adjective with им. So like over here in this poster, молодым везде у нас дорога. There's always a path for our young people. Так. And then if it's a soft stem, if it's a soft stem, and if it also is if it's affected by the 7-letter spelling rule as well, then we write im. Okay? So, вот, практика в контексте. Okay? So this is where we're going to practice those plurals in context. So here we have an irregular masculine plural, дома, but it still stands. It's still a plural. And so how would you say, how old are these new houses? How old are these new houses? Wow, they look so great. Spoiler. Сколько лет этим новым домам? Сколько лет этим новым домам? Okay, over here we have a few things that need to be in dative case. The children need to often call their parents. The children need to call their parents often. So start thinking, pause the video if you need to. And детям надо часто звонить своим родителям. Детям надо часто звонить своим родителям. Вот. Okay, so now this is where you get to do a quiz. Please leave your comments below. Не стесняйтесь. Don't be shy. And either I or another native will correct you. This is extremely important that at the end of our comprehend part of PCP, we quiz ourselves. Did you in fact concentrate? Did you in fact comprehend? So here is your quiz. I will put it up on the screen just for a minute. Start looking at it. So we have something like, we help our old neighbor. These poor students don't like practice on the topic of Russian grammar. How old is your older son? I bought my teacher a book on the topic of American history. And then this is a famous line from a super cute children's song. Bonus points. You get 1 point extra credit if you can identify what song these lyrics are from. Новые приключения, which means new adventures. Okay, so 2 new adventures. We are hurrying, friends. The best, of course, is ahead. So pause the video here, do your quiz, leave it in the comments below, and then guess what? Our next video on the topic of dative case is going to be super fun. One of my current university students is joining us, and we're going to be talking about ages. And he's a super interesting student, and you'll find out why when you watch that video. So, хорошо, это все. We're almost done with the PCP. We're almost done, and you guys are going to be experts on grammar, on dative case after this. Хорошо, увидимся завтра. Это все на сегодня. До свидания.